Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to LCK Spring 2018. And yes, the Afreeca Freecs, a dominant performance, only suffering one death throughout the team to keep them away from that elusive perfect game this season.
But it was so clean, Atlas. It was
So
super clean. If you held it up to the sun, you could see straight through it. Translucent was this particular game. Performance by Afreeca. Beautiful to watch. Not quite the perfect game. A single kill staves off what was basically a perfect game by Afreeca. Less than 30 minutes as well. Welcome to some of our epics and odysseys that we had happen yesterday. And there still may be plenty of those tonight, given that Jin Air and also a tight-knit first spot place game happens later in the day. Just early in the game, it seemed clear that the Caitlyn lane would be where the good news was. There was a kill in the 2v2, and from there, things only got better for the side of Afreeca Freecs.
Yeah, just seemed like from the draft onwards, things were brilliant. As we check out the MVP, not sure whether it's going to be Kuro this time, because Tucson, his Abyssal Voyages were fantastic this game. And his ability to lock people down, so many of the enemy team were devoured this game.
And that's the cool thing, is this is not the standard, behind enemy lines, peeling people MVP for a Tahm Kench. This is the bloodthirsty Tahm Kench. Doa somewhere watching on and approving of what we saw from Tucson. He walked up, Teddy messed up and died. Using summoners there wouldn't have changed anything. Tucson predicted the heal that wasn't there and looked a bit silly. And from there, they were always in the right spot, where the Afreeca Freecs, even after being outnumbered, they turned this one around. And there weren't some great plays here. Kuro, for example. Yeah, not really knowing his ranges, that wasn't great.
This blast cone was fantastic from Sion as well, and you thought that they were out, but no. The Battle Catfish comes in and just eats a Camille on his own.
1v3, baby. Doesn't need anyone in his belly. He's got an enemy to find.
Yeah.
As we watch some more, as Teddy, everywhere he went, so did Mowgli, so did Tucson, and Kramer was free-fed and free-farmed on the Caitlyn. So only good news stories for the side of Afreeca. Jin Air gonna have to throw game one out with the dishwater and actually show us something different in game number 2.
And this composition just straight up didn't work from Jin Air Greenwings as well, so there's a lot of things to talk about as far as changes to be made in playstyle and in what they're going to be picking. That was the closest thing to a decent engage that Jin Air made the whole time, and the Devour just completely ruins the whole day.
I can see you losing your voice. It was so awesome as Secret Agent Tucson, 005, is now only 100 points behind his teammate and level with BDD.
Yeah, wanting to catch up. He's got another game potentially to do it as well if the Afreeca Freecs are going to be able to get this 2-0. Jin Air with an opportunity to make their way back up, and you can see Mowgli still in the seat. Kramer as well, still in the seat. We're going to have no subs to bring us into game number 2. Not even going to be Justice switching over for Grace to mix things up for the Jin Air Greenwings. Here we go, Champion Select, round 2. As Jin Air try and figure out what to do next, because everything needs to be changed moving into this game.
Now, some things don't need to be changed. For example, banning Sion would be recommended
still a good idea.
for the side of Jin Air, given that it is that two-way flex for Afreeca, and potentially three-way if Tucson decides he wants to get a quadra kill like Max did last year. But Jin Air, it's ban away Sion.
Can you find it? Nope, it's going to be the Zac
find
this time.
Sion. Unfortunately, with too many champions in the game, they could not find the Sion button. Maybe next time.
Is it next to Zac in Korean? We'll never know.
That's not.
I know. But could have been. I'm sure everyone back at home doesn't play on the Korean client.
If you wonder, guys, in Korea, they call him Jack because they don't have the Z.
Yeah. Well, Caitlyn is going to be taken away, so Afreeca, they don't want to first pick it. They've got a different idea in mind, probably forcing Jin Air to ban away the Galio. They don't want to see it. Afreeca play around that pick very, very well, and Sejuani going to be taken.
Are we going to have the potato tank mid lane matchup of Galio versus Sion?
Oh my goodness.
That's something I didn't know I wanted until right now. Jin Air don't ban any of them.
Well, I mean, they're probably not going to either. The Olaf still needs to be banned away as well, and it might be that Jin Air are forced to pick Galio Sion if they want to take away the potato tank mid lane. Which could be absolutely crazy. The 3 picks that Jin Air are picking around does mean that if they want to lock in 2 of them, it is an opportunity. And the Olaf is going to be taken. So, Afreeca, do you want Galio or do you want Sion? That's the question.
Interesting that with Mowgli in the lineup, they still ban away the Olaf, because like you say, there was going to be some decent options for them. Afreeca asked which one they prefer, and, well, they're going to take one large Galio, please.
Yep. Surprise, surprise. Certainly has been a great pick for Kuro so far, and having that hero's entrance is brilliant for the Afreeca Freecs, who just want to get around the map and get things done early, and they're so good at coordinating and doing it as well. So, come on. Is no one able to find the Scion button today?
I mean, we're waiting for Jin Air, because it's not a confirmed thing for the side of Afreeca Freecs.
Yeah, well, this is what I was thinking, and there we go. Looks like Xayah is going to be the option here for Teddy, and are they going to lock away the Rakan? Because Galio-Rakan is a great combination that Afreeca might just go for to deny the Lovers duo.
And we have had the Starcross Lovers as recently as yesterday with Rakan takeaways, so see what Jin Air decide, because if you skip out on a jungler here, you are pretty likely to give away a first rotation mid laner and jungler the side of Afreeca Freecs, and they decide to take their losses with the Xayah Rakan. So action onto Afreeca. They already have the Galio. They're going to have a tanky frontline for him. The Caitlyn's banned away, and now the time for Tristana definitely is on the rift.
And do they go Tristana and possibly pick up a Tahm Kench to lock that one away, or are they going to grab that jungler like you were talking about?
Hey.
No, not a Tahm Kench. We're going full engage, as the Leona is going to be the answer.
Kuro looks over to his teammate and gets worried now, because Leona's another MVP factory from the support role. Is a champion that's seen as a good matchup into the Xayah Rakan, because the Zenith Blade follows any of the dashes coming through from the Rakan in particular, so you can make them a bit more accountable. As the final pick here in the first round robin, it's not going to be a mid laner.
It's going to be the Skarner once again. Question marks everywhere go on in my brain, because Umpty didn't make it work last game. Can Jin Air correctly build around it this time around? Camille is going to be taken away, denying that combo from Mowgli and Kuro. And the Zac is already gone, so at least changes will need to be made for the Afreeca Freecs.
Wait to see what's decided in the second round, because like you say, probably not going to be a Fiora game now that the Camille is out of the rotation.
Vladimir removed from So On as well. Wonder what Keen is thinking for the top side. With Ryze not actually picked by Grace, it might be that we are going to head towards another Keen special in the Ryze top.
Sion still available through all of this.
Yeah,
we should remember. Sion, Vladimir is one of the better matchups into Sion, so perhaps we're just going to be banning him last if we're Afreeca Freecs. Or we're going for a Mega Bait. That's all I can really take from this.
Yeah, it could be that Keen has a pick into it if he wants to. See whether they ban it away, because they could also then just lock in Kha'Zix Sion or something like that for the Afreeca Freecs and really go to town in the earlier stages of the game. Get all of that CC. Does
suit a damaged jungler as well, because they have a lot of tankiness already locked in. Sion will be the final ban, so
not going to take the chance.
Orin is now shining as a very potential draft from the side of Jin Air, but with Gangplank available, they're going to try to reinforce their damage first on that side. Top lane Ryze could be rolled in.
Yeah, they're going to be hovering it here at least. Denies it from Grace as well, who was thinking about it before they locked in the Skarner for Umpty. What does Keen go towards as well? I mean, he knows exactly what his matchup is, unless Grace has got something interesting to show us. There's only FLICKR so far this season that's played the mid lane Gangplank. There it is. Top lane Ryze is going to be the case.
Outside chance, of course, being top lane Galio, but because it's Keen, who is already 4-0 on the top lane Ryze, we are expecting it to be the top lane Ryze, that he is the only person playing in recent memory. One other game, really crazy. Played a single game of it. That was into Gnar. That was tricky. And for the final pick here, the jungle pool has been pinched pretty extensively. And hello!
Okay.
Patch 8.4 Nocturne as well, even before the Nocturne buffs. We're diving.
Yeah, I think obviously Mowgli has been playing a bit of it on the new patch, but one thing I do love is you might think that Nocturne and Leona wouldn't work together, you know? Sun and darkness, not necessarily things that work well, but damn, Paranoia as well as Solar Flare, the lockdown into all of the extra damage, plus Hero's entrance on top of it, that combo is repugnant. As Grace is going to go for the obvious choice for him, the Talia once again locked in, was something that Kuro was able to deal with. But once again, the Afreeca Freecs' cohesion in the composition, especially after level 6 for Mowgli, is just gross.
It's a really bizarre time, though. Nocturne saw a huge rise in priority in solo queue on patch 8.5 with a litany of buffs. You also consider that, is he ulting onto the Gangplank? Because definitely the Xayah is going to be able to disengage it with the ultimate. Potentially Talia as well. Could be locked up there. Very strange final choice given that it's patch 8.4. But we can tell what Mowgli's been playing on the new patch. He's going to try and roll it back and work on patch 8.4 as well.
Yeah, and we've seen Nocturne sort of crop up here and there, especially, you know, back about a year and a half ago, things like that. Nocturne, even though he hasn't been changed at all over that time, just sort of falling out of favor. Just sometimes there's someone with a pocket pick. We see it in internationals ever so often, but I'm excited to see what Mowgli can do. Hopefully he doesn't just assume that he's just as strong as on 8.5, because that can be a little bit dangerous, as the Rise versus GP matchup also going to be interesting. The
Gentleman's Agreement matchup of farming till level 6 will also be happening in the jungle. But Galio's there and the globals are back, so the global power this game is going to be very fun to watch. A bit of an arms race in the globals, given that we see it from the jungle on the side of Afreeca. Bot lane, finally we find a lane that actually can get Tristana much more safely through, not the Caitlyn matchup that Jin has struggled with in game 1. Interesting game. Afreeca win 2-0. There's no way for Kingzone Dragon X to end the day in first spot.
Yeah, they can't quite confirm it. Still likely that they'll get there, but the Afreeca Freecs look so damn good in game 1. Can they back it up in game number 2 is the question that we have for them. And can Jin make this composition work better? The team comps are exciting. The game's bound to be exciting. And guys, we are steps away to get onto the Rift for game number 2. Umpty fiddling around with his headset just for the moment, as we are going to have a small sound issue to bring us in there.
Cheerfuls for Jin were really awesome, by the way. They're cool anime-inspired cheerfuls, but you're right. Just waiting to get loaded into that game. Feels like an uphill task for Jin, but the Nocturne is far from reliable. Nocturne Galio, that's some fun synergy as well.
Yeah, that is going to be what we're looking for, and can Tucson actually set up all of these ganks as well, because he'll need to find CC before the Paranoia is going to be able to register most of the time. Oh man, if it works though, it's going to look damn good for the Afreeca Freecs. I just like it. The creativity has come through in both games so far. It was Abyssal Voyage that really got them into surprising positions around the map in game 1, and now the Paranoia plus the Hero's Entrance is going to be the option.
You can add on to that. Paranoia, Hero's Entrance, Realm Warp as well. They can be very tricky with their positioning, and Tristana has her own way of finding herself in surprising spots. Nocturne on 8.4. Very, very interesting. We'll talk over the 8.5 changes and why we were less likely to see him now. But regardless, things aren't necessarily set up for the Nocturne, but the team comp, that part's fun.
Yeah, and we are going to just continue to figure out exactly what is going wrong with Umpty. I like that we had a Discord issue.
Oh no!
Joel, guys.
Do we still have Joel?
Yeah, we do. We do. The Discord issue wasn't in our particular channel. Our server's absolutely fine. We're totally all right because Joel takes care of us. You know, he's certainly a Discord moderator. Checking out Mowgli here, just getting himself ready, and he's absolutely fine. Headset sorted. Umpty hoping to get himself in there, and hopefully they can actually rejig their brains as well moving into this game, because especially looking at the bottom lane matchup, we shouldn't expect to see Teddy getting 2v2 killed on the bottom side of the map this time.
And the game 1 is not really the sort of game that causes the mental boom, as we called it in Korea, because it was just so clean. You kind of, as the enemy team watching, you're like, these guys are pretty good. Yeah, they made the right decisions.
Yeah.
We have no combination of items we can build right now to answer it. You kind of just watch on and awe and think about the next game very early. I think 15 minutes in, you were like, well, this is what we can change for game 2 to try to make it work. So hopefully they can just put that one to the side and show us a new side of Jin Greenwings. Yeah. Kuro on the screen, still tilted that his teammate picked up an MVP. Kuro famously in every interview is like, but what about me?
Yeah,
He's always very self-centered when he talks about MVPs. I'm sure behind the scenes he's a real team player. He's supposed to be their captain at the moment, but
the thing that's absolutely hilarious is that sort of the way we got introduced to Kuro, especially back on the Rocks Tigers, he was definitely the team player. Wasn't the guy picking up all of the MVPs back then because he had so many MVPs on his team. And now, sort of turning it all around and being able to win joint MVP last season, certainly there's a reason for it.
And the truth is that, you know, when you were in Kuro's shoes where, you know, someone has to be 5th on the power ranking for a team, it gets tricky, you know. It gets tricky to really separate your ego from what SNS is saying, from what Discord is saying, from what people are saying. So now that he found himself as a carry, he has definitely stepped up to the plate and more on the team of Afreeca.
And we'll see whether he can do it this game as well, getting his Galio once again. But guys, all of the audios are fixed. Discord is repaired. Let's do it. Let's get into game number 2. Well, the Jin Air fans certainly very vocal today, and after that first game, you can understand why. They need all the help that they can get to get themselves into a winning position. It's likely, I mean, winning game 3 after coming off a victory, also something that happens quite often.
The Teddy Turtle.
The Turtle.
I mean, those two things do make sense together because, of course, they love to turtle for Teddy.
Yep, exactly. Well, now, we've got the Crystal Spires being claimed on the top side of the map for the Afreeca Freecs. Bottom side will be Mowgli starting on his red buff, and that will mean that lane priority won't go immediately over to the Tristana. That often gets a little bit of extra help.
Want to power farm into level 6 wherever possible. The item build is also pretty unknown. You can see standard warrior enchant into lethality. You can see Tiamat early as well if you want to really go for AoE clear. And we get the last time we saw a Nocturne, a certain LPL jungler, Flawless, was jumping onto it. A Spenu Sonic Boom. That was against Ambition. And on Samsung, now KSV, of course. There's a jungle matchup we might see in the future.
Potentially. Graves versus Nocturne, though, that was certainly well back in time. That was back when I was commentating the LPL, and we also saw some Nocturnes back then as well. I mean, Clearlove does like to bring that one out.
You would argue the most famous one is Kakao, who is well known for his Nocturne, and of course, it's an interesting time to mention that our grand final, the LCK final, will be in Busan. SpoTV will be bringing that one on the 14th of April. The last Busan final was the one Kakao won in 2014 summer. Katie rolls to Arrows 3-2 over Samsung Blue.
An incredibly exciting final as well.
It was Nocturne in the final, no less.
Outfits as well were pretty good, if I remember correctly. He's keen. Trying to do what he can against So1 here in the early game up top side. Teddy feeling much better about having the Xayah Rakan on the bottom of the map. Afreeca Freecs, a different style. Will probably be playing pretty far back until Mowgli hits that level 6 and can actually offer some pressure around the map.
Side of Jin Air, they are kind of rinse and repeating their strategy when it comes to Skarner and the Taliyah, but this time not in a massive disadvantage in terms of the 2v2. They tried to make the strategy work with Caitlyn into, with Tristana into the Caitlyn. It didn't work, as the numbers will illustrate on the bottom of the screen. This time, Xayah Rakan will definitely have pushing options against the Tristana and the Leona. You can try to just play with the Weaver as well and try to play an objective-focused game with the Xayah. And this time you also have the Gangplank ulti to try to zone the enemy away from the turret. So a turret-killing composition, if you can play through bot lane, get the hero's entrance on cooldown, and then start the chain of abilities, there's actually very little Afreeca can do, but watch you start to accelerate the game with turret destruction.
Yeah, we might actually see this bottom lane move backwards and forwards a lot here as well, because we know Leona goes through spikes in power, is about to hit that level 3, actually does have it already, which is when they may have some options, but Jin Air should be able to utilize the flexibility of Xayah Rakan very, very well to make sure that this is where it wants to be. And with the help of Umpty, might have even more options. Mowgli down here at exactly the right time, though, is going to stave off any sort of fracture gank coming in from Umpty, considering the fact that he's not quite level 6 just yet.
Less wards means less ability to ward down the lane against a Nocturne. Very common lane ward is against Nocturne around bot side especially. And also less tracking of camps, because you don't have that instant ability to ward basically everything with a tracker's knife and your support invading. That does set up Nocturne well.
Well, Umpty's still down there. Good buffering of the rocket jump here for Kramer, but
Predator.
now it's on cooldown. In goes Umpty. Okay, Tucson going to do what he can to try and make sure that Umpty can't get in, but he may have to flash to get himself out of the way of this one. Blade Caller, no snare. And Afreeca Freecs save all of their summoners.
And Tucson needed to hold on to the flash. We know about the laning phase when you lose flash as Leona.
Oh, yeah.
Champion who can only go one way. This is before Galio was going to hit level 6 as well. Things get better and better for Afreeca when they get the ultimates. onto their jungler and their mid laner. While they lose out on basically all of their regen, they do keep the flash up on Leona.
Good news story for Afreeca Freecs is top side of the map, but not so much on the bottom side, as once again, Kramer short arms the rocket jump a lot. Really good double snare there from Teddy, but they're just getting the harassment off when they need to. Wraith down to about half health, but he'll be absolutely fine still. A couple of potions in the back pocket.
Actually, Kramer's first game of the season on the Tristana. They haven't shown priority on it, have Afreeca Freecs been on Varus and Ezreal duty for the majority of the season.
A lot of our LCK teams actually not showing a lot of priority until about this week, a little bit last week as well.
Well, that pesky Kallista's kind of gone, and that means the Tristana priority has gone way up. I think we'll see more Ashe as the weeks roll on, especially as an answer to Caitlyn, but for now at least, it's all about the Tristana. We'll see if the nerfs on patch 8.5 change things.
Yep, unless Def's performance deterred anyone from picking up the Ashe.
May even see it on Prey in Game 2, who knows?
We'll see. Okay. Kuro turning up, we'll be able to easily grab this whole wave. Fossil Smash feels great. There we go. Mowgli coming down, and we'll take this Rift Scuttler, waiting for that level 6, and he's quite close.
I don't believe it's going to be enough experience. I believe it's going to be, yes, just
one more
half a camp away.
Should be able to grab his red buff after a back, and continue moving forward. Skirmisher Saber to help out with his dueling potential, and to keep him alive. Jin continue to push this one forward. 48 to 56 is going to be that CS margin. About a wave. The Afreeca Freecs probably okay with it. Understanding that Tristana's laning phase isn't exactly the best.
Nice CS lead for the Rise top into GP. Not a matchup you see very often. If you think about how GP lane's all about just parlay onto the enemy laner for lane control, if you're open for a parlay, Rise can show you some nice spell weaving to make you pay for it. So you trade up so often as the Rise into melee matchups that it's another lane where Rise will be very, very comfortable. An eminently gankable champion after the stopwatch Deficio special was removed. But so far, if he can just extend and overextend, even with a Nocturne jungle in the lower amount of lane presence, he's going to be happy.
And this is exactly where Mowgli was going to be once he hit level 6. Umti, really good game sense to know that this is exactly where he needs to be as Tucson. They're just waiting to try and find a Solar Flare as Kramer wants to get a ward into the brush, but there's the Impale. Grand Entrance comes down. That's an easy first blood for Jin. We knew that the setup was good, and it was Afreeca Freecs trying to force themselves into a better position and not finding it.
And the mid laners were holding each other accountable, so who baited who was the question, and Kramer walking up. Too easy for Umti to just press the ultimate. Didn't even need to use too much in that particular gank. Very clean from the side of Jin. Mowgli will be frustrated. They'll try and make it again, but it is a set-piece composition, you know, kind of reminds me of these very old-school press R and win AoE layering comps. Not quite that, but because of the long cooldowns on abilities like the Paranoia, like the Hero's Entrance, the setups don't work in the early game. There's a bit more reliability on Jin to find advantages around the map.
Yeah, it just feels like a lot more just strong champions picked that don't need to fit together like a puzzle. Afreeca Freecs certainly a little bit more like that. But it's not over just yet, as Keen throws a lot of damage over it, so on. Still stacking up the tier. Both of these champions happy to scale for a little while. Will be the Rise spiking a little bit earlier once the Seraphs and the Rod of Ages are completed.
Happily buffed Seraphs on patch 8.4. One of the reasons that it prompted Tal yesterday to blind pick the Cassiopeia top with that extra power loaded onto the tier items.
Yep, it's been unfortunate that it didn't quite work out in that series.
So patch 8.5, which of course will be coming hopefully next week here in the LCK before playoffs. That's when Nocturne gets bigger healing on
the
his
Umbra
passive.
Blades. Yep.
Yes, indeed. The Dustbringer, more reliable and faster missile speed. Also gets the ability, just kind of general buffs on all of his abilities, apart from the Fear Tether.
The Fear was the only thing that has actually been buffed in recent times. So now that it's all come together, it feels a lot better to be a Nocturne.
Definitely see a lot more Nocturne in solo queue, and I imagine that's what prompted Mowgli to play it recently. It's just, again, without the buffs there, Nocturne can be just too linear. We expect him to go kind of into the pretty standard 80 Assassin build, at least for second item. I think going into Serrated Dirk is probably the way we're going to see, and a Duskblade at least for the second item. But how far into AD you go, kind of always been built for interpretation. Not a lot of utility on the Nocturne once he commits to the ultimate.
Yeah, that's the thing. Building a tank Nocturne feels like you've just conceded the game in a lot of ways, as Mowgli once again down here on the bottom side. Umti, he's hanging around. It's an opportunity. They could possibly get on top, but Jinner not giving any windows to the Afreeca Freecs at all.
All summoners up as well, so the reliability of that gank is quite low. Oakley will just hang around, looking for a great time. He needs to see something used, a grand entrance. Even being face checked, Nocturne's is not just going to ult someone if they face check him. He needs more time and more setup that he's not getting right now. See the Drake started by Umti.
Yeah. Yeah, to start this one off might be an opportunity for the Afreeca Freecs as Tucson moves his way over. Solar Flare will need to land as there's the paranoia. Umti gonna take so much damage. He does manage to pick up the dragon, but Solar Flare is held onto, then utilized so nicely. Afreeca Freecs, the team fight gods, are gonna get what they can. Teddy surprisingly gets one back with a Blade Caller, but it is trading up for Afreeca Freecs.
And Jinner just opted into the wombo. They did not need to do that, but they chose to and give up 3 kills. The side of Afreeca shared between Galio and the bot lane, 1 each. Very, very even in the distribution. They start up the Drake. It is claimed after all, as the smite comes in, 14 health away from securing it. And as the fight goes on, the hero's entrance is a great spot. Kura has his flash open because no one's used any summoners so far in the game. Just incidentally, multiple people go down, but Nocturne will die as well.
Yep, it's just the Nocturne though for 3 on the side of Jinner, and giving 1 kill and 2 assists to Kramer basically saves the game for the Afreeca Freecs. Getting this Tristana a little bit more power is so important. The pickaxe BF sword as he goes back home also feels really, really good.
Mid-game is going to be the big piece of power, and also being able to return to the scene of the crime when flashes are down, because the pylon comp will have a lot of success. Not quite the bouncy castle of the Zac being with the Galio, but it's pretty close, given that Nocturne commits so hard that usually the action will follow him. Usually the hero's entrance onto the Nocturne will be the way, and if not, Leona will be there. So a lot of backline threat coming through from first Nocturne and then the Leona. We've talked a lot about front-to-back comps. This is not a front-to-back comp. This is just cheating and going straight to the back line.
Yeah, this isn't everyone to the back comp, I think. That's what it is, and they're utilizing all of this extra mobility to try and get the first few picks in a fight, and then everything just goes wrong for Jinner from there on. And when you've got a Skarner, champion that isn't so good at getting himself out, he's the one that wants to sort of start and then move quickly and bring people back in with the Impale, things like that. But if you can get a pick onto the jungler, it just means so much in this current meta with Elder Drake being so strong, and especially the Baron being a huge thing that you need to be watching out for.
And look, if they get a ward control situation with control wards and you pick someone with a Skarner ult, that's fine. But in team fights, when do you Skarner ultimate? Because if you're like, hey, I found someone, meanwhile everyone else is in your backline, you're like, well, where do I pull someone to? The fight's happening over there. Can get very, very tricky. So appealing Skarner is never really somewhere you have to be. But given how the comp has been constructed, might be necessitated by how much backline threat there is. A comical amount on the side of the Afreeca Freecs.
Well, Teddy going to move his way up. Umti looking for an opportunity to predator his way forward. Difficult to use as a verb, that one. As Kane continues to play aggressively. This is a Ryze that's almost taken down a turret top lane. We all know that Ryze doesn't exactly have the most AP or AD at the start of the game when he's scaling off mana. Used to be that Ryze was the worst turret killer in the game straight up, as there's the paranoia. The snare comes in. Cannon Barrage is trying to get rid of Mowgli, but it's Keen that's tanking the turret. Exactly what they needed to do, and now the Nocturne has his own kill. Solar Flare comes in as Tucson was just trying to get them off this turret. They don't want to lose this bottom lane outer because they want to keep some control. First turret blood, though, is going to Afreeca Freecs on the top side of the map, so still able to continue making advantages happen. Yeah,
the Solar Flare had actually hit. There was a chance that Galio would have come in. He was in position, having already rotated down after wave clearing, but no harm, no foul. They buy a bit more time onto that objective. They actually turn onto an objective of their own on the top side, jungling around where they're strong, but a teleport coming in very early.
Yeah, Weaver's well invested as well, and Mowgli's going to say, all right. Well.
Probably didn't need to use both of those. As the Rift Herald's like, ooh, a blue buff, but leaves.
Yeah, it's like Shelly's jealous ex-boyfriend just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at the problem. You can understand that. We make silly decisions when things like that happen.
That felt like an overshare, Atlas.
That wasn't personal.
It's about your friend.
Yeah, happened to a friend of mine. You remember that show? It was a good one. Nobody else is, but Was a great one. Essence Reaver is done here for Teddy. Still looking for a few more items before he's feeling great, but at least has himself a glove and another dagger. Try and get some of that cooldown reduction happening.
And is ahead of the build compared to Kramer, who has kind of stitched together most of an Infinity Edge. So wants a static shiv for wave clear. But while he's fighting over the mid-game Tristana hump, the Galio is ready to go. 5 stacks on the Rod of Ages, and also the Proto Belt complete.
Yeah, 4 stacks on his Dark Seal as well. Feels pretty good to be Kuro. See whether they can get them through. And Kramer, I was actually very interested about where he was going to go with the build. You see the pickaxe, and you kind of think that maybe the Infinity Edge is going to come through a little bit earlier, just because otherwise it would have been the rush towards the static shiv that we'd expect. But no, Infinity Edge fully completed now. Still behind in farm, which is understandable against Teddy. Was able to grab himself a kill onto Mowgli in the last fight. So he's still strong, like you say. Infinity Edge for just more of the team fight Tristana power.
It's kind of a weird item to think about on Tristana. You might say, okay, she has an attack speed, why not Infinity Edge? Then she really only has that one burst rotation with the explosive charge and the Q, and then when the Q is down, of course, in the early game, has a long cooldown. She doesn't really do much of anything. You know, she really does struggle. She can't back up wave clear, she doesn't have a shiv. Infinity Edge is very narrow. However, if everyone's piling on with CC and she gets a full rotation off, you can still find value. It's not a standard Tristana build, probably one necessitated to get some power in the early game, but one that's not going to really change anything unless the team is doing some heavy lifting around.
Well, Umpty, can't actually see all the members of the Afreeca Freecs down here, as standing on this brush is not exactly all that sneaky, guys. The gank duo that want to be jumping right into the back line. The fact that there's vision available for Jinair is certainly good. Predator still on cooldown. Mowgli, this is just a little bit sad. Okay, looking to try and get his way out as Kuro. He's going to flash into the backline. Solar Flare's there, and Teddy disappears. There's no opportunity to do anything, but still, it's a 1-for-1 as Mowgli is so squishy. Keen flashing forward. Umpty, he's in trouble. Tucson gets on top of him, and Keen gets the last Q to grab it. In goes Kuro. Yeah, Proto Belt is there, and Grace. So much damage from those Winds of War. This is one hella strong Galio, and it's at least going to get the Afreeca Freecs the second Drake of the game.
Teddy dies with both his summoners and his ultimate available. Maybe the heal wouldn't have quite allowed him to use the ult, but always feels bad as a Xayah, especially because she has one ability to answer the pylon from Afreeca. They turn onto the Ocean Drake. They pick that one up, second spawn of the game. We'll see the replay here. Xayah should be the MVP. You see the CC bar. It never does truly stop. Knocked up, no fun. Dead at the start of the fight. And from there, they can keep going. And when the Rise shows up, Rise has so many items early in the game. The straight up Archangels. So much power that they keep chasing until they decide to peel off for the Ocean.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up as well, going Archangels before even completing the Rod of Ages, making sure that that item spike comes in as soon as possible. Afreeca Freecs really intelligently playing around where they need to have power and utilizing it. Using that teleport gets him in there, gets the work done. So 1-0-1 for the Rise, who now has the Rod of Ages. Happy to sit back for a little bit longer. And we've got full stacks on Kuros. This Galio is gigantic.
It's always going to be fun to judge the order in which spells are used by Afreeca, because Teddy, again, has the ability to lift off in most fights and can turn around one of those scenarios if everything's down from Afreeca and they re-engage, but didn't happen in that first time. Seeing Afreeca turn onto the Rift Herald, started this earlier, but this time fully committing to it.
Yeah, and when both the solo laners are here, there's just not many opportunities for Jinair to get their way forward. That's going to be Mowgli grabbing Shelly one more time. So mid lane out of turret, bottom lane out of turret, still available. A lot of places for that Rift Herald to be put down. It's just Kramer up towards the top side, trying to build towards item number 2. Zeal is the only completion. The Infinity Edge Zeal is a little bit more expensive than that of the Essence Reaver Zeal. So Kramer feeling okay. There's the Weaver's Wall. Kuro wants to try and keep himself alive, but the taunt comes in. Wants to try and get the Justice Punch on top, but this is 1 versus 4, and he's just not that strong. So wrong place, wrong time. Great Weaver's Wall from Grace.
Enough on-command CC. They didn't want to try to ult out and have that ability be on cooldown. He wasn't able to get out, so he backs away. Jinair get a pick, but they know that Rift Herald is already down. They can get some control with Baron spawning. The secondary objective will likely be their attempt at the top lane outer turret, and Kramer already there to answer a push.
Yeah, and this is the least amount of time possible that they have access to a 5v4 situation, because teleports up from Kuro and does have his ultimate as well. So he can be everywhere as soon as he comes out of base. And they're not even able to get the blue buff as it's going to reset.
And with the control ward there, they don't feel safe enough to walk up and tank it. And like you mentioned, Kuro just says, well, that was a bit silly. I'll come back to mid lane and be there to be the quarterback in any sort of future fight.
Yep. Couple of stacks now remain on the Dark Seal, but certainly feels better to kill a guy who's got a few stacks on that one, and I think he was sitting on about 8 or something. And
I'm sure if I made a multiple choice question of how many Abyssal Masks we could see this game, 0 would not have been one of the most likely ones.
Yeah.
As Rod of Ages second, a little bit later, around 18 minutes, picked up by Keen. I guess he got enough gold on the back end to make himself feel secure about that. Still going to be a gold lead for So1, you would imagine, just because he's Gangplank.
Yep, 50 CS probably not enough, but a couple of kills certainly working out. And you're right. Oh, no, not quite right. 50 gold.
You know, he'll get there.
Yeah.
He'll get there very soon, given that the Rise is backing. So thanks, OGN, for trolling me.
Well, there we go. Oh, is he going to catch up now while it's on the screen? That's the question. Get that barrel in there. So
yeah!
There we go. Nailed it. QSS was picked up by Keen as he gets back. He doesn't want to be impaled, brought into the back of a team fight, because that just feels really, really bad. Duskblade done for Mowgli. So you're asking the question, is there going to be any defensive flavor? I guess almost yes is the answer, because there's a Ninja Tabi there, but I wouldn't say so.
It was those first 2 items I think were guaranteed because there's so much synergy. Less vision in the game, so having Duskblade feels great.
Even saw it on an Ezreal, if I remember, recently.
From Kramer.
Yeah.
Such as Kramer. So we'll see what happens after this item. It could be something like the Sterix Gauge if you want to go for some semblance of tankiness in the back line.
Yep. I think we're going to go down. Afreeca Freecs investing a lot of vision here towards the top side. You can understand that, given it's 22 minutes into the game. Jin Air have a decent amount of damage on top of that Baron, especially with the rapid fire cannon now done for Teddy. 2 items coming in.
Baiting an ult would be so big for the side of Jin Air to then be able to not have to respect the wombo that comes through from Afreeca. And this is the set piece play.
Yep, Weaver's Wall going to come down. Dustspringer was actually
very
good.
We're going!
There's the flash from Toos, and they miss everything, though, as the ultimate comes out from Teddy. They would have known that that was a possibility. They just didn't quite line up the CC in time. Getting the Shield of Daybreak after the Zenith Blade maybe just has that small window where the Featherstorm was able to be channeled.
Trade of flashes. We're a little bit later in the game, so it won't be multiple minutes cooldowns to respect. That time you see what happens when a comp that's all about multifaceted engage doesn't get it going. Jin Air can return, although Nocturne putting down the Rift Herald to at least try to force some movement from Jin Air.
Yeah, it's going to trot into the mid lane, but Jin Air have 4 members here. Shelly's very keen to get at least a little bit of a boot, but not going to do too much. Health bar was a little bit too low. Now Teddy goes back home. BF sword? Yes, it is. He's charging up towards that Infinity Edge. Static Shiv is done for Kramer, but he's going to need more items than that if he wants to continue moving forward. And despite the focus onto Teddy, still being able to get all of the farm that he needs. Thus is Teddy. He's staying ahead in items of Kramer as well. 3 items is the goal for both of the 80 carries. It's a bit cheaper for Kramer, but Teddy's just a little bit further ahead.
And initiation goes wrong, and now we have Zeke's convergence and 2.5 item Xayah to punish you. So this is the part of the game where things can really turn. Lower item thresholds when base damages are all that are really being respected. Afreeca win basically every 5v5. Now there's the outside chance Jin Air can turn it around. Only issue being that Teddy's flash is on cooldown. So actually disengaging him after the start of the wombo might be tricky. For a turret dive here, or at least to force this turret. Mowgli there. Try to repel this onslaught from Jin Air. Weaver's Wall still on cooldown. Means that this is not a trivial thing to take.
Yep. Solar Flare back off cooldown now, though. Paranoia also available, and I believe Hero's Entrance has a couple of seconds left, unless I'm getting trolled by the icon.
You're right. It's about another 6 seconds, so it'll be up soon.
Very, very close.
Rise through all that was farming and continues to be in a very strong piece of power. Probably going to be the Void Staff next to get rid of the incidental magic resist that's been put together.
Yep. Especially up against So1. Weaver's Wall going to come in, and Afreeca Freecs, they don't want to take the chance. This tower finally going to fall. Jin Air taking the objective lead as far as the structures. Mid lane outer. Did seem like it was going to be the focus by the Afreeca Freecs. Looks like Baron could be an opportunity here for Jin Air as they have 2 control wards, a lot of vision availability. Oh, there's the flash. Grand entrance comes in as well as Hero's entrance. Greatly timed as Kramer gets his way out. Umti wants to find what he can as Wraith battle dances. He's going to be okay in the end. And they do kill Tucson. 4v5, but that wasn't the target they were looking for. Jin Air, can they get anything else off the back of this? There's so many pings.
It's a 1-for-0, but getting both summoners from Kramer is massive as well. Are we just going to be an Ocean Drake too early in the game to turn on to Baron and plenty to turn around a fight from the side of Afreeca? That is the power when they get a vision lead, and Skarner and the Rakan have the ability to show threat. So now the shoe was on the other foot for the first time this game when it comes to engage. Jin Air have that strong engage as well. We watch the replay. Tucson walks up and Jin Air sniff blood.
Yeah, that engage with the Grand Entrance was stunning. Hero's entrance is well timed from Kuro, but yet the Impale onto the Leona, and she's just definitely dead.
Cleanse Battle Dance gets the Rakan out of the fight as well.
Nicely done. Kramer scrounging for as much farm as he can find. About 30 behind here. Rapid Fire Cannon very close. Not quite there yet. Afreeca have a really interesting composition when you're talking about moving into the late game as well. Nocturne doesn't feel great if he's playing from behind, and still does feel like the Nocturne hasn't taken over the game at all.
I wonder if it'll be Static Shiv as next item, because he's building towards a Zeal. You almost never see Zeal on melee champions that aren't Gangplank.
Well, Tucson's going to be able to get the stun here. Solar Flare comes down as well, and there's no summoners on Wraith and no one nearby. Couldn't battle dance out. Now support dead over the side of Jin Air. Means that Afreeca Freecs have some control, especially considering Keen and how strong he is in this 1v1.
Have to use too much to make that happen. Only Tucson's ultimate. There still is increased threat. That's why Gangplank is already assessing his options around this outer bot lane turret.
Well, so I'm going to move his way back here. It's half the health bar on the outer turret remains, so shouldn't be able to grab it on this push if Sohan can get the barrels in position.
They might just go for the turret dive again. There is that overshield and the Rod of Ages health for Keen, but the wave clear being very expedient. A couple of items in does dissuade them from a dive.
Important thing for Jin Air, Teddy does finish the Infinity Edge. Will be a decent time to fight. Probably does want the QSS to guarantee safety. And Afreeca will have to rethink their Wombo engage onto the Xayah. That is to be the case.
Mowgli stayed here for a long time. Trying to make this play work.
Well, Paranoia does come down. Lots of damage availability as the cannon barrage is there, but Sohan, he's running the wrong way. And Mowgli actually going to be taken, and he flashes away. Oh my God, Jin Air. Sohan playing that out beautifully.
And they run straight to Baron as well. Unnecessary to go for that dive against Derek's Gaze. They do it anyway. Baron's darts, they head them off with the Weaver's Wall. This could just be free.
Yep, teleport's going to come in from Sohan as well, so if they do try and contest, it's going to be a disaster. Keen has the Realm Warp to get him there, but it's going to be too late. Baron comes down. Hero's entrance is here. They're trying to grab the Baron, but they're not going to be able to. Mowgli, he's still dead. Kuro, massive in the front line, but he's just not doing enough on the back end, and Kramer is going to die incidentally. Grace just popping off, doing what he can. Threaded volley comes through. Keen should be able to get something here, but everyone from Jin Air is going to back him up, and Keen actually has to flash away underneath the turret, and he's going to get CC'd and destroyed. This is the Jin Air we wanted to see in this series.
And Afreeca Freecs, the Nocturne seems like they're playing with their food. They could have had the prime rib steak from game one and gone standard. Instead, they go super creative with their draft. Nocturne on patch 8.4, and it's just overforced. When that force doesn't work, it gets turned around so quickly, and then it loses so many objectives before Mowgli even gets any relevance in this game.
Yep, he's now trying to find a red buff, does so. Certainly a decent option there, as Baron is going to net them 2 turrets in this early game. And let's see it. I mean, this was a disaster on the bottom side.
Level 16 onto the Gangplank with the Sterix Gauge, so that fear comes through when it comes to hitting spells from the Rise. Knows the turnaround, the extra damage coming through, just dies to the burn from the Gangplank passive of all things. Very nicely played by Sohan on this Gangplank.
Yeah, a few extra cannons coming down from the ultimate as well. Sohan had positioned that one perfectly. But you're right, I think it's more a little bit of a question mark for the Afreeca Freecs rather than an incredible outplay, even though it still was. This didn't need to happen. Banner of Command already completed here. Going to be sent towards the bottom side of the map.
And now you make the wrong engage, and the game might just end. So Afreeca still have engage. They still will feel there's a way to take out Teddy, but he has Summoners up. He has QSS available. How do Afreeca Freecs make this comp work now that they're down a Baron?
Well, they definitely don't engage onto Teddy. I don't think that is the option. I think he is trying to get a pick elsewhere. That's how they're going to make it work. But right now, it just looks like there aren't too many of those options. Inner turret is going to fall on the bottom side. Afreeca don't want to risk it all just for an inner. It's Kramer, he's hit 3 items, but we're not talking about it as excitedly now because Teddy's way ahead of him. Mentioned not a lot of Trist play for Kramer so far. Hasn't necessarily been one of his comfort picks that we've seen Kramer do so well on in the past.
I just like the Jin Air stuck with what has worked in the past. These Skarner and Talia comps made the modification they needed to by improving their bot lane power and are executing so far very, very well in spite of Afreeca getting super creative with their draft. Nothing for Afreeca to do. They need to hit everything on point, and even then Jin Air can outplay. So for now, with the gold disadvantage, they choose to give up an inhibitor.
Yeah, and it's that Nocturne question that you asked before. It's, do I have enough damage to actually find the kill onto someone? And the answer is no. And it feels like Afreeca now have been trumped. Like, what do they do against this? There's a Joker on the table, and they've got nothing they can do.
You try and kill Grace, I guess the answer, as Grace has no summoners, and the stopwatch will be able to disengage some of the damage. But you mentioned it already. Teddy is now almost impossible to kill. The gangplank is already fairly slippery. There aren't a lot of good news options. There aren't a lot of good choices for Afreeca because they've drafted a very linear comp. Everyone presses R, especially with the Nocturne, Galio, and Leona. And if there's no kills from that, there really isn't a plan B because Kramer doesn't have 6 items on the Tristana yet. So even with the ability for those champions to create space, if they don't burst, the space can't really be translated into burst damage yet. So that's a struggle for Afreeca. The answer to your question is, they hit and hope, and they also wait for the right moment. How many objectives will fall down, though, before Jin Air make any positioning mistakes and invite there to be a turnaround fight?
Well, they break the base on the bottom side of the map. That inhibitor is gone. Baron no longer on Jin Air. Possibly another opportunity for Afreeca to try and not go for a dive onto Soan. Potentially have a 5v5. These siege scenarios just don't seem to be working for the Afreeca Freecs. Big wave of minions down on the bottom side. Teddy happily just wandering his bannered up minion towards the one of the last remaining inhibitor turrets on this map.
Requires Kramer to be there to answer as his range is finally getting into the oppressive Caitlyn territory. Dustbringer, at least from range, can do a little bit of damage to a banner minion, but certainly won't be killing it from the Nocturne.
Yeah. And Keen and Kuro not going to be even spoken about.
Nope.
The magic damage. Afreeca Freecs at least now stabilizing, holding onto their base. No more are they getting sieged out. Just feels so difficult for the Afreeca Freecs because what are the good choices? Jin Air just holds so many of the cards. Weaver's Wall once again. Afreeca, at least on the right side of this fight, as Wraith doesn't quite get the knockups they're looking for, but still, Mowgli and Tucson explode. The Impale is then able to get used onto Kuro, survives a long time. He uses the Zhonya's there at the same time, but it's 3 kills to start this off, and Jin Air, they've got so much damage.
They do, and unfortunately for Afreeca, they really don't have any trump cards. Umti styling a little bit in the front line. I don't know if he should be doing that after some of his recent games, but he's going to try to get into the heads of the enemy team.
Yep, after game 1, that is certainly optimistic, but you can understand it. Game 2 is working real well. And it might be Jin Air just going for the win. They are just going to move underneath the turret. The bottom lane, Super Creeps are heading forwards. Afreeca Freecs only 2 members to try and defend. This is a fair bit of wave clear, and there's no Baron, if you remember. So Keen, certainly relevant on that one, but the last remaining inhibitors, they'll go down. Soan gets jumped on as Kramer's trying to defend. He just can't. This bannered up minion is doing so much work. And that is the base dismantled by Jin Air.
And 3 inhibitors, like you say, they back away, they go for another shot. They are very far ahead in gold, around 13,000. And you look at this game and try to make sense of it because it's the antithesis of game 1. And if you remember, we had the KT versus KSV series last week, which KT went for the Rumble game 1, very 2017 KT, and then lost the series. 2017 KT style. Atlas, are we seeing 2017 Afreeca Freecs happening in this game? Because it was close to a perfect game in game 1, and then it has got very youthful exuberance about the Nocturne pick and about the Wombo comp they drafted in game 2, and the 3-game series that Afreeca haven't been trading upon in 2018 seems all but assured.
Well, it's coming back now. It's been a weird and wonderful week so far.
Yep.
We've had as many games as possible. It's looking like once again this series is going to go to 3. Afreeca wanted the 2-0. Remember what it meant for them standings-wise. Still, game's not over yet. But when a threaded volley kills Mowgli through his ultimate as he's trying to dive into a backline with a hero's entrance, you know something's going very, very wrong.
What did I tell you at the start of today, Atlas? 30 games the dream for week number 8, and we are still on course for there to be 10 best-of-3s going the full 3 games.
I like to get my money's worth when it comes to watching League of Legends, so I completely agree with you.
And I've got to earn my money, apparently, when it comes to League of Legends.
Well, Jeanette moving their way through. No more inhibitors to kill. They're just waiting for these Nexus turrets. Not exactly the highest range on this team, but they've just got so much damage. If anyone gets in the way, it's going to be a really big problem. Banner of Command going to be used as in goes Mowgli once again. Hero's entrance. It's not going to give him the damage protection that he wants, but Grace has to use the Zhonya's. You got Kramer free hitting as So1 trying to look for the Tristana. They're getting a lot of damage into the backline, but Grace finally gets rid of Kuro. The front line is melting. Umti taking a lot of damage from Keen, but look at all of the minions. Jin Air, they know where their bread's buttered, and they're going to bring us to game 3.
And it could be the series victory for Jin Air, the outside chance of the playoffs for Jin Air, and it also represents that whatever happens in the final game, Kingzone Dragon X with a 2-0 will be confirmed first place in the LCK. So a lot of excitement about what this result makes, but no more so for the players on your screen. So Umti having a bit of fun on the Rift. We saw So1 picking up his first Gangplank victory of the season and looking stylish doing it. Coach Han seems hyped as well. Jin Air fully deserving of their Game 2 victory.
Yeah, and I want to go back to the fact that, you know, this is Jin Air. We expect long games. Yesterday, 8.4 or not, they were incredibly long games throughout the entire day. This series has been real punchy. The first time Jin Air was on 8.4, it was back-to-back 28-minute games as well. I'm really glad that they're picking up the pace. They made the Skarner comp work. They were a bit stubborn about it, but finally they figured it out, and they get to have the momentum moving into Game 3.
And Game 3 probably represents some change for Afreeca. Spirit was very likely to come in for the 3rd game now that he's seen Umti jungle for 2 games. Maybe take away the Skarner that has been a pick for 2 games. The Talia, the cornerstone of their turret destruction comp. So a lot of great Weaver's Wall positioning behind turrets. There are adjustments to be made, but Jin Air made the smart adjustments between Game 1 and Game 2. And that comp they ran in Game 2 was so much more clean than the muddy comp that couldn't get past the Caitlyn lane in Game 1.
Yeah, they figured it out. No Tahm Kench to save anyone from the Impales either. So once again, we are going to be going the distance. A lot of you probably thought that it was going to be Afreeca 2-0. Not going to happen. All the League of Legends this time. Short break, and we're back with Game 3.